Hey, this is C&D Channel. I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my post-fight analysis for UFC Fight Night 41. Overall, for a Fight Night card, it wasn't too bad. Strickland Barnett kind of sucked. Sabata versus Palak wasn't the greatest. The fights were alright, though. Did pretty good on my picks. Got 8 out of 10 correct. The ones I missed were Blood versus Jotko and Backstrom versus Niini Maki. The bonuses, there were no Fight of the Night bonuses, but there were 4 Performance of the Night bonuses as Musasi, Dalloway, Backstrom, and Blood got their $50,000 bonuses. One thing to note about this card, I'm really digging the commentary from John Gooden and Dan Hardy. I think they work really well together. Very knowledgeable as well. As far as divisional relevance goes, Musasi moves up, Dalloway moves up, Backstrom's a prospect to watch out for. Alcantara should be getting a step up in competition. I'll definitely be saying that a lot of these guys should probably be fighting lower to mid-tier competition next, just because it's a lot of lower to mid-tier guys fighting other lower to mid-tier guys. With that said, in the main event, we had Gegard Mousasi beating Mark Munoz by rear naked choke in the first round. Very dominant performance from Gegard Mousasi. Very strong counter wrestling and just positional awareness from Mousasi. Definitely what I like to see from him. Munoz, man, this guy was shooting far away. It was just, it wasn't the greatest wrestling from Munoz. He's shooting from far away, making it relatively easy for Mousasi to utilize his counter wrestling. But you gotta say that is some greatly improved counter wrestling for Mousasi. There was one time Munoz looked like he had a deep takedown, and Mousasi managed to sprawl out of it. Managed to take the back, get the rear naked choke. Just great stuff from Mousasi. Just beat Munoz everywhere. In grappling, in striking. Excuse me, neck hurts. And just great stuff from Mousasi. Definitely the type of performance you want to see, and to delegate whether he's all. I don't want to take all hype per se, but because you've seen some of his performance against Jardine, even against Vincent St. Preux wasn't that great. Lost to King Mo, and you're kind of and those were a little more of his latest type of fights, earlier in Dream and Dream, up kick against Jacare and whatnot, some really good wins, but sometimes you gotta wonder about his ceiling, I guess. But Mousasi looks just really good. What can you say? I think he should fight. He actually called out Rockhold or Kennedy next. I think those are really appropriate fights for him. I'd really like to see Mousasi Rockhold personally. I think that would be a really good fight. If not him, Jacare. Funny that I should mention those 4 guys. If you actually look at those 4 guys, all have one thing in common: came from Strikeforce. So it's also there's also a narrative, especially in middleweight, about how good some of these Strikeforce fighters are, especially in middleweight. Kennedy, Yoel Romero, Luke Rockhold, Jacare, Mousasi. Even guys like Derek Brunson are kind of moving up in the division, are doing well in the division. Larkin, not so much, but I'd like to see Mousasi Rockhold next. So as Munoz goes, when he goes up against some very good guys, whether it's Mousasi, Weidman, or Machida, all very strong fighters, he loses in a way that's pretty dominant, What can he say? You got to kind of look at him as nothing more than a gatekeeper at this time. He's also on the wrong side of 30, so that doesn't help him as well. But it's just any type of title aspirations, you got to think are probably not going to be there for Munoz at this time. As far as guys he should fight next, I know he's supposed to fight Bisping one time. Maybe the winner or loser of Lee versus Bisping. One of those guys would be fine. Who else? Francis Carmon wouldn't be too bad as well. So, there's still good fights for Mark Munoz out there, but at this time, he's a guy that's looks like he's going to cling to that, like, top 8 to 10 spot at this point, Maybe he'll be relegated down more towards 11 to 15. Next, right after that, CB Dalloway beat Francis Carmon by unanimous decision. Very, very happy about this pick, actually. I know a lot of guys were thinking that Francis Carmon would be able to utilize his grinding style to get the win. But I noticed that CB Dalloway has been just really steadily improving and really putting it all together. To say he's a top 10 guy, I think he's around 10. He's been looking good. What can I say? He still has the cardio issues. I mean, it happens at all of his post-fight interviews, man. This guy's just tired, man. His post-fight interview with Dan Hardy, I mean, he's all like, he actually says, "Oh, I'm tired." It's like, this guy still has some cardio issues. However, his striking is getting a lot better. Managed to drop Carmon with a left hook. And he seems to just push forward more. He has a, I don't care attitude with striking. Like, if he gets hit, he gets hit, but he's going to try to hit the other guy too. Like, you can kind of just see his, I guess you can say, attitude or even swagger towards striking. He's definitely, you don't see any type of tentativeness. I think that's one of the more important things for Dalloway. As far as his improvement with striking goes, it seems just his confidence is very much there, and he utilized good wrestling and counter wrestling against Carmon as well. So I liked what I saw. He's definitely a guy that's just putting it all together. Could he beat some of the top guys in the weight class? They're getting better. I mean, like I said, we saw Jacare, Rockhold, Kennedy all up there. Munoz is still up there. Vitor, Machida, and of course Weidman's up there. I mean, there's some really, really strong competition in the top. So it's really tough to say if he can really beat those guys. I can see him beat Munoz. Well, he lost to Munoz at this time. Maybe he could beat Munoz now. Another guy that I'd like to see him fight, though, a lot of people are saying, would be Yoel Romero. And that guy's been crushing guys as of late. I think that would be a pretty appropriate fight for Dalloway, just as far as where both of them are. Romero's coming off the dominating win over Brad Tavares, and Dalloway got a good win over Francis Carmon here. If not, you can do Dalloway versus Kennedy, and if you want to go really high up there, Dalloway, Jacare. But yeah, there's good fights for Dalloway for sure. With Carmon, I think we kind of know who he is. I think he's like 32, 33 now. He's a physical specimen. Striking's actually not too bad when he puts it together and shows some higher output in his striking. He throws pretty good combinations, ending with kicks. Some pretty decent kicks. It's just, I don't know. It's almost like what you see is what you get. To be honest, I would actually recommend for Carmon. He's 6'3", big for a weight class. I'm kind of thinking he should maybe go to 205. He wouldn't be undersized. I think at this point the level of competition is not as strong, especially in the mid to lower tier of light heavyweight. Think he can get wins there. And once he gets up to the top 10, yeah, he'd have a tough time. But, I can see him beat the Igor Prokrayaks, John Volantes, some just the lower tier guys, of the division. So I think that might be a good next move there. A lot of people talk about moving down. Maybe, when it comes to 185 and 205, moving up's actually not the worst idea. 205's definitely been depleted of talent as of late. So yeah, I think that might actually be his next a good next move for Coleman, to be perfectly honest with you. Next one, I thought Sean Strickland beat Luke Barnett by split decision. Oh man, dude, it's funny. I picked Strickland to win. Man, he didn't win this fight. Oh man, gosh, and this fight sucked. What can you say? This is not a good fight. It was just Barnett was trying to push the action. Strickland was kind of content with doing counter striking, but a very low output type of counter striking. I liked what I saw from his head movement. Barnett would throw punches, and Strickland would utilize good head movement not to get hit. Quite honestly, I guess you can give round 1 to Strickland and maybe like a round 2 or something to Strickland. Maybe a 29-28, victory for Strickland. But that's really being nice, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think he won the third round. I was pretty high on Strickland before this fight, but I definitely know now after watching this fight I got to ease off on that. I would have liked to see a lot more grappling from Strickland. I think he could take down. He did manage to get Barnett to the ground. His striking wasn't too bad, but like I said, the output was just really low. Too content counter striking, too content just being on his bicycle. It's just not a performance you want to see. Barnett was not very happy with it. Strickland just kind of went with his game plan that I think wasn't the wrong game plan per se, but needed to be tweaked. As both these guys are still prospects. They're still pretty young. Strickland's only like 23. Barnett's like 26. So they just fight more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. The next fight of that, Nicholas Backstrom beat Tom Niinimaki. Some would say rear naked choke. Others would say bulldog choke in the first round. I liked what I saw from Backstrom. Niinimaki, it wasn't like a dominant performance or anything like that, but there was some slick grappling from Backstrom here. He is very good on the ground. Niinimaki, he managed to take the fight to the ground. Striking's not too bad, but it just Backstrom just managed to get a really slick submission in there. He's actually a very good prospect. I'm curious to see what who he gets next. I'd like to see better wrestling from Backstrom, but Niinimaki's actually a pretty good wrestler himself, or just good at takedowns. You saw it in the Yaya fight, so I can't really fault him too much. But yeah, he got Niinimaki with a really good knee before the submission actually. So yeah, just good stuff from Backstrom. Both guys just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. On the prelims, Nick Hine beat Drew Dover by unanimous decision. One thing that was really noticeable about this fight is Hine's just a really strong guy. He had a really good left hand. Striking's a bit, I kind of want to use the word robotic, but it's just stiff. It looks like he throws a lot of arm punches, and really pushes the punches instead of snaps them. I liked his judo from Hine. Dober was always in the fight, but, Hine, just the superior grappler. And quite honestly, I thought he's kind of the superior striker. One thing to point out, too, was the post-fight interview from Hine, taking the mic. Really got the German fans to rally behind him. Really good look as far as getting into this market. It's just really good to have a guy like Hine get into the German market. That this is the first time the UFC is back in Germany after a long time. So, I think he's sergeant with. Geez, I wasn't too sure if it's military or police, but I know he's a sergeant. But yeah, he's a good German local star. I can definitely see Hein being used and more like European cards, and especially if they're in Germany, they'll definitely put him on the card as well. He's a solid fighter. I wouldn't really call him much of a prospect per se, just because he's 30 years old. He's good. Definitely needs some work in stand-up. But I think a guy who can use range and straight punches would give fits to Hein, but otherwise it's more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. Dober, 2 losses in a row. He lost to Spencer and now to Hein. I don't know if he stays in the UFC. Yeah. I don't know if he stays in the UFC. I don't know if the guy has a role in the UFC. He's not much of an action fighter per se. He's not much of a gatekeeper per se. So yeah, I don't know. He might get cut from the promotion after this. I mean, yeah, I don't see a role for him, to be honest with you. Next fight after that, Magnus Sonnenblad beat Krzysztof Jotko by a guillotine choke in the second round. Good overall grappling from Sonnenblad. It's really hard to say the type of fighter he is. His stand-up defense still needs a lot of work. He was getting hit clean by Jotko, but he managed to get takedowns against the cage. Got a nice guillotine choke. It looks like kind of his go-to submission hold. Like I said, he's not much of a prospect either, per se. I think he's like 31, 32. Jotko's still in his mid-20s. Just really more mid to lower tier guys of the division for these guys, I say that with a lot of these guys because I can see them winning some and losing some. I can't really... There's no one here except Nicholas Backstrom, probably, that makes me think, like, if he goes up against lower mid-tier guys, he's just going to keep winning. Some of these guys, like a Sonnenblad, I don't know if he'd keep winning even against the mid-tier. Next fight, I thought your Contra beat Von Lee by TKO, 25 seconds in the first round. Man, Alcantara just needs a step up in competition, man. This guy is a very good fighter. His striking is solid, and he has a sneaky Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game. The only weakness I see with him is his takedown defense. Otherwise, he's big for the weight class. He is capable of winning fights with strikes and or submitting his opponents. As far as a good next step for him, I'm thinking Mizugaki, who's coming off a good win over Francisco Rivera. If not him, he wants a Faber rematch. It's not the worst fight for him. He could get the winner of Caceres versus Faber. If not him, then who else is there? He could go with a Sanchao as a title eliminator, I suppose. I'd like to see a Sanchao just get Dillashaw. Maybe Michael McDonald, even though he's coming off a loss. Give him to Alcantara. So there's good fights. He just needs that step up in competition at this point. Von Lee, he's coming off the good win over Nam Fan. But kind of is who he is, He just seems like a mid-level guy to me. It's more lower and mid-tier guys of the division for him. Next fight I thought Peter Sabota beat Polak by unanimous decision. The first round was primarily stand-up with Peter Sabota showing good kicks. There's a lot of grappling and top control in the second and third round. It's not like lane prey per se, but they just kind of, Sabota couldn't pass, guard. There wasn't really much to say here, Sabota... It was a good workman-like performance from him. It's more lower to mid guys in the division for him. Pawlak, if he's Polish, so that really helps him. If they want to get into that market, more lower to mid guys for him. Next fight after that, Maximo Blanco beat Andy Ogo by unanimous decision. Cool first round blitz from Blanco, man. Flying front kicks, man, that drops Ogle. That's the thing with Blanco, man. He has some very fan-pleasing offense for sure. He can't always follow the rules, and I saw a lot of fence grabbing from Blanco here. I say it all the time. This guy just can't follow the rules, and it showed here. He showed a more steady game in the third round. Blanco did, and if he can kind of show more of that and not somewhere to frenzy at offense, he can be a little more consistent. But it's that frenzied blitzkrieg offense that really cost him against Akira Kurosani with that knee to the head and whatnot. But he's a good fighter. It's just he can't always he lacks consistency. Just in the cage, he'll blitz, he'll go crazy. Then he'll be a little more steady, and just in his record in general, he can get a couple wins. He'll lose a couple. A lot of times just by his own design. As far as he should fight next, Kevin Souza was coming off a good win over Markadiva, maybe him. Could go Backstrom next. Blanco versus Diego Brandao wouldn't be too bad either. And Diogo, he manages to stay in the UFC. He's a gritty guy. More lower to mid-tier guys of the division for him. I don't know if he stays though, because I think he's coming off a loss over Cole Miller, right? No, it's like Cole Miller, then Charles Oliveira, then Maximo Blanco. So he might get cut, to be honest with you. And finally, Ruslan Magomedov beat Victor Pesto by unanimous decision. It started to fight really well as Pesto rushing in with strikes, trying to force a takedown and whatnot. I think he did get on top and do good ground and pound. I like Magomedov's striking though. It's really patient. He doesn't really overcommit or anything like that. So, he's not a bad heavyweight prospect. He's one of the better ones you can get. Victor Pesto's not the worst, I guess, heavyweight prospect you can get. It's more lower to mid-tier guys of the division for these two. So that's it for my post-fight analysis for UFC Fight Night 41. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And that's it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.